Hi guys, last week while Belfast burned, I asked on Twitter, where the F is Boris Johnson? Well, he took the time to put down his ice cream and tweet about it, saying that the police service of Northern Ireland should be respected. And that was about it. Well, if we were expecting Boris Johnson to do more, we would be mistaken. It seems that he has pretty much washed his hands of the entire situation. I'm not just talking about the violence taking place in Northern Ireland, which is both directly and indirectly related to Brexit, but also the damage he and his idiotic fringe within his party believed would be a huge success for Britain is having on businesses and the very glue that holds the union together. Boris Johnson's government is now resisting growing calls to hold a special crisis summit with Dublin to resolve the growing tensions in Northern Ireland. There is a growing fear on both sides of the Atlantic of a return to sectarian violence. On Sunday, members of the UVF, a loyalist paramilitary group, raised their flags on streets which contained Catholic families and ordered some of them out. Windows were also smashed in order to convince those who didn't want to leave their homes. Senior political sources have told the media that requests from the government in Dublin to their counterparts in London to hold a high-level intergovernmental conference to help stabilise the situation was met with zero enthusiasm from Boris Johnson's administration. The Irish government is adamant that recent tensions and a week of nightly violence, as well as a breakdown in relations between Northern Ireland parties, requires both governments in Dublin and London to meet as a matter of urgency. The problem is the Irish government don't feel that there is the political will in Belfast at the moment to find a solution. So it therefore falls to Dublin and London to provide a way to reassure the people of Northern Ireland that the centre will actually hold. Dublin believes a meeting should be held between Brandon Lewis, the Northern Ireland Secretary, and the Foreign Minister of Ireland, Simon Coveney, in order to address a number of different issues that have caused the current rise in tensions. Those, of course, being trade and border issues stemming from Brexit. The Good Friday Agreement has provisions for special meetings to take place if necessary. However, Boris Johnson's government has until now refused to meet with the Irish government. Why? At the moment, Unionists like the DUP have been feeding their supporters the idea that the EU and Dublin are somewhat their enemy, and if Brandon Lewis, the Northern Ireland Secretary, was to hold such high-level meetings, it could create more tension in the Unionist and Loyalist community, as it would be seen as Dublin interfering in Northern Ireland's business. Now, the Irish Taoiseach Micheál Martin said a few days ago that political leaders on both sides of the Irish Sea must not allow Northern Ireland to spiral back to the dark period of sectarian murders and political discord. His comments follow reports of police officers from the PSNI who were injured as they came under attack in the loyalist area called Tigers Bay, which is located in North Belfast. This was on the 8th night of violence. A burning car was rammed against a police Land Rover and rubbish bins were set on fire in the middle of the street. Now, Brandon Lewis flew to Belfast on Friday for urgent talks with the 5 party leaders in the Northern Ireland Executive, but no statement was issued due to the protocols following the death of Prince Philip. Now, pressure is growing on Boris Johnson to do more than send tweets. Jonathan Powell, who was the UK's chief negotiator in Northern Ireland from 1997 to 2007, told the Observer newspaper that the current Prime Minister lied about the effects of his Brexit deal and says the current return to violence requires the statesmanship that Boris Johnson clearly lacks. He said, and I quote, "All this requires the British government to start paying attention to Northern Ireland, rather than cynically using it." He went on to say, "The worst problems in Ireland have always happened when Britain ignores it, and it means no more using it as a battering ram in a post-Brexit conflict with the European Union." He also said, "Most of all, it means coming clean with the people of Northern Ireland about where they stand. The government can no longer claim clean hands if it fails to take these steps, and the result of its political approach is the unravelling of peace in Northern Ireland." Louise Hay, Labour's Shadow Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, demanded that Boris Johnson step up and show leadership. She said that the Prime Minister should revive the institutions that are part of the Good Friday Agreement and stop ignoring Northern Ireland. Adding to the problems is the current legal action taken by the European Union against the UK when it unilaterally chose to extend the grace periods for goods moving from Great Britain to Northern Ireland. It looks like Boris Johnson's government may use that issue to block any talks with the Irish government and the restoration of those institutions to protect the Good Friday Agreement. Unionists, loyalists and their hard Brexit supporting allies in England have been calling for the Northern Ireland Protocol to be scrapped, and they've been calling for this since the beginning of the year. However, none of these people have actually presented an alternative, a working alternative to the Northern Ireland Protocol. The likes of Ben Habib from the Brexit Party have teamed up with other hardline unionists in order to take legal action against the British government when it comes to the protocol. Some minute sanity still remains within Boris Johnson's administration because the Northern Ireland Secretary last week poured cold water on that by saying that the Northern Ireland Protocol would not be scrapped, but told parties in Northern Ireland that resolution of the current crisis taking place there will need all sides to come together. Boris Johnson is being his usual self, complete indifference to problems until they reach a fever pitch and he's forced to get involved. He also wants others to do the heavy lifting so that he can pop in at the last minute and claim some sort of victory. If the solution gets resolved, I imagine Boris Johnson will be there for the photo opportunity. But if it doesn't, he will keep as far away from Northern Ireland as possible. Northern Ireland is not the type of situation that will resolve itself by itself. It needs clear heads and strong leadership. Boris is probably the worst Prime Minister at the worst possible time. He lacks the understanding of the complexities of the situation and risks making the problem worse. A robust approach is required, even if that means that he should meet with those who are throwing bottles at night, because if he doesn't, we risk seeing other elements getting involved and finally the necessity of having a greater police and even military response in Northern Ireland. This is something that those who are familiar with the history of that part of the world have clearly said we should avoid. My fear now is that Brexiteers in England will continue to ignore the problems brewing in Northern Ireland, out of fear that their Brexit project may come under greater scrutiny. They perhaps fear that the public will turn on Brexit and demand that it is sacrificed in some way to save Northern Ireland. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee, so why not check it out?